On to Pro Moto number 1 is your points leader, Joe Bird, feeling that he is ready to go racing, trying to tackle the Redbud race course. Joe Havistow, Jeremiah Jones there, trying to work his way up through the points aboard the number 2. The 199 of Pat Brown, we saw him make his way in via the qualifiers yesterday. So did we see the 708 of Harold Goodman making it in the same way, though Brown a little bit better off in the early part of that in that qualifier. But as we take a look at the starting grid, here's what these riders are going to be faced with off the starting line. Right now, they're just trying to groom things up there a little bit to allow themselves the opportunity to get off the starting line without too much wheel spin out there, and just using their feet to try to pack things down just a little bit and clean out those start lines as we get set to go. The gate drops, and Pro Moto number 1 is now underway, and who's going to get the ITP Hole Shot Award? It's going to go to the number 7 of Joe Bird. Back behind him, Yoshimura Suzuki rider number 55, Digger Doug Gus, and Jeremiah Jones in the number 3 spot. 4th place jockey for position looks like the number 12 of Keith Little, followed by in 5th spot the 13 of John Natale. So we've got things secured in the early part here of Moto number 1. And while they get things sorted out, let's run back and check in with that ITP Hole Shot Award, see how Joe Bird did it. He just got off to a great start. Good jump off the gate. Momentum through that first left-handed turn. And there's nobody there to challenge Joe Bird for the early lead out of that first turn region. But right back behind him as we continue through, we see that the sunshine is out. The track has dried up quite a bit, especially from yesterday's qualifying action. And the racing action is heating up behind Joe Bird right now as Gust holds on to second. Jones in third, back and forth. The number 13 of John Natale not too far out of the hunt right now. The number 12 of Keith Little also back at about a 5th place position as these riders head up toward the launch pad. And Creamer also trying to break into the top 5 as we see these riders jockeying for position right now. We've seen the 53 of Ellis going by there. Looks like Ellis getting off to a slow start. We got a battle for the lead early on, though, as Bird being challenged by the 55 of Doug Gus. Will Bird be able to rise to the occasion? Fans are on their feet at the fences. And look at this battle for third between Natale and Jeremiah Jones. Jones shuts the door on the number 13 defending champion. Now Natale's going to have to try to strike back. We'll see if he is able to do so. Meanwhile, Joe Bird is able to stretch things out just a little bit over the 55 of Doug Gus. Gus still in second. Jones still place still. John Natale, Keith Little still rounding out the top 5 as you see them making their way by. There's Pat Brown in 6th, Creamer in 7th, Spader in the 8th place position now. And I believe that was Joe Havistow rounding out the top 9 spots there. Jason Dunkelberger in 10th aboard the number 19, then Wimmer in 11th, the 191, Steve Rumpel, the 911, 12th, Goodman 13th, 14th place. Romain Capri, the Frenchman, who made his way from France to race here at Redbud Track and Trail, America's racecourse, and we're glad to have him with us. Joe Bird on the track in the lead, and we talked with him before the race.
Now if the track holds together and we don't get more rain, the track will be okay. Be a little narrow, but there's not much you can do about that at this point. But just getting off the start is going to be the important thing right now. There's going to be slim passing out there in spots. You're going to have to be aggressive to make some passes. And the whoops over here, somebody makes a mistake. And all the guys are going good in them, but if some guys make a mistake, it's a good wide section there. So it's going to be interesting.
I don't think the racetrack nearly as narrow as what they expected it to be come pro race time at 12 noon. We did that interview with Joe Bird a little earlier in the morning, and the racetrack was rather one-lined at that point. But since then, things have been opened up quite a bit via the track crew and the racing action that has been taking place. And speaking of racing action, look at this now. Battle for third as Jeremiah Jones has moved into second. Digger Doug Gust is under pressure from John Natale as these two are going at it wheel to wheel. Basically the same scrap that we've got going on from a lap ago, only the machine remains the same, but the riders are different. Last time it was Jeremiah Jones. This time around it's the 55 of Doug Gus. But Joe Bird is the man in command. Jones in second now. Gus in third. Natale fourth. Keith Little still holds on to a 5th place position as we look at that Parts Unlimited leaderboard after 2 laps of racing complete in our 20 minutes plus 1 lap of racing here at Redbud in our ATV 8 National Motocross Series round number 7. Joe Bird, he's still feeling the pressure from the number 2 of Jones. Jones still feeling the pressure from his teammate of Digger Doug Gus, and Gus still feeling the heat from the 13 of John Natale. Right now, the number 12 of Keith Little trying to apply what pressure he can from back in 5th place, but more importantly, I think that Keith Little is as much worried about what's going on behind him as he is what's going on in front of him right now. He wants to try to secure as much of a lead and break away with this front pack as much as possible to try to keep the rest of those riders at bay to keep them from challenging as the moto progresses. Bird and Jones 1 and 2. And look at the battle still back there between Gus and Natali. Natali going to try to go to the inside on the Suzuki wall here, and Natali will make the pass on the 55 of Gus. And this is the John Natali of old. We're getting to see glimpses of this every once in a while in this 2006 racing season, but unfortunately for Natali, it seems like as the moto wears on, he begins to fade. You got to wonder if he's got that training regimen under control just yet as we head into the whoop section. And here comes Jeremiah Jones. He's trying to pass on the outside. Let's see if he's going to be able to do it. He closed the gap some, but not able to get around Bird just yet as Bird holds on to the inside lines coming through that little chicane, that switchback section, but up and over the finish line, it's still Bird with Jones hot on his rear wheel. Will Jones be able to make the pass? He is searching for lines, one side of this race course to the other, inside, outside, high banks to the inside, and trying to flat track it around as much as possible or rail the berms, whatever the case may be. Wherever Joe Bird is not going, that is where Jeremiah Jones is going to try to make his attack from. Gus trying to retaliate back from fourth place now, challenging the number 13 of Natali for the third place position. All the while, Natali now is closing in on the battle for the lead. Going to try to force both of these guys into mistake and pass both of them in one foul swoop. We'll see if he can get it done. Now as they head across the FMF ridgeline here at Redbud, a new addition to this track because of the track conditions. Normally they weave up and down that hill, but because of the conditions, they went straight around the ridge there. And now we see that the speed and the dry conditions have really aided in making this a great race course for these pro riders to challenge one another. And the challenge is on. Here comes now Jeremiah Jones striking one more time with John Natali on his back wheels and the number 55 of Gus right behind him. Keith Little still trying to fend off that sixth place ride back there. We'll check in with that battle in just a few moments. Right now, though, we watch to see whether or not Jones is going to be able to break Bird. All the while, Natali still trying to fend off Doug Gus aboard the number 55, but Natali, I think, is feeling more like he is trying to challenge these guys as Jones trying to one more time pulling up side by side with Bird, but Bird's got the inside line advantage there, which helps him out, but Jones is going to push him out of that switchback section, and now here comes Natali. Natali trying to strike on Jones for second place. Will he be able to make that pass? Not just yet past that finish line as they head back around that first turn region now. Jeremiah Jones looking back behind him, seeing that Natali is there, seeing that his teammate Doug Gus is also within striking distance, while they all try to get around the number 7 of Joe Bird. Down in the back section of this race course, the speeds are intense, and Joe Bird is able to keep them at bay, at least at this point. But here comes Jones on the inside, trying to steal as much racetrack away as possible, up side by side. Natali using the same line as Jones, hoping that they can both sneak by the number 7 of Bird, but Bird has got the momentum and holds on to the number 1 spot. They cannot dethrone Bird out of that number 1 position just yet. Jones and Natali are both right there, and it looks like the battle for second is starting to heat up, and this might be the saving grace for the number 7 of Bird, because it might force. There goes Natali now as he gets around Jones. Now Jones is more worried about trying to stay in front of Natali than he is passing Bird at this point, and this is the grace that we were talking about that was going to play in the advantage of the number 7 of Joe Bird. But at the same time, John Natali falls back into third as Jeremiah Jones gets right back into second. But on the high outside, here comes Natali once more. He's set up for the inside, heading for the launch pad, and John Natali takes over second. And I know that Jeremiah Jones is wondering, where did this speed that John Natali has at this point in the race come from? Because they have seen Natali fade as the race wears on, and they are not accustomed to seeing Natali charge up through the pack like he is right now. And he is all over that Honda rider of Joe Bird. And Bird and Natali not only battling for the lead in this moto race, but this is kind of like a points battle as well, as these are your top 2 contenders as far as the championship is concerned here in 2006. And they are wheel to wheel here at Moto number 1 at Redbud Track and Trail, America's race course. And all over, the number 7 is the number 13 of Natali. Inside, outside, as he goes to the outside, side by side. Now Natali takes over the lead, and Bird cannot retaliate. So John Natali is out front, and Bird, all he can do now is try to find a weak point on the defending champion of John Natali. Again, we've said it before and we'll say it again. This could spell disaster for the rest of the group if John Natali has found his groove. It is Natali, Bird, Jones, Gus, and Pat Brown now rounds out your top 5 aboard the number 199. Keith Little dropping back a position or 2 back there. Tough break for him, but don't count him out of this race just yet. He could still be a top 5 contender on the race day. Natali not able to stretch it out, I'm sure, as much as he would like. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, Bird still back there in second. Jones still back there in third. Doug Gus still back there in fourth. We've got a four-way battle right now for the number one position. And it looks like now Jones is trying to challenge Joe Bird. He wants to get around Bird. He wants to strike back on the tally to show him, hey, you can pass me like that, but I can pass you like that as well. But it's not happening, but he gets around Bird. What a slick move by JJ. Jeremiah Jones sliding into that number 2 spot now as Gus gets by as well into third. It was Bird trying to strike back on Jeremiah Jones, which left the door open and dropped him back to a fourth place position here in Moto number 1. Now we've got a battle between Jeremiah Jones and John Natale. Gus in third and Bird back in the fourth place position as we are nearing the halfway point of Moto number 1. We've still got lots of great racing action to go here, plus a second Moto to see how it all pans out after this race weekend. We got a battle for third going on right now between the number 55 of Gus and the number 7 of Joe Bird as he's trying to strike back. Pat Brown pretty much by himself back in fifth right now. Looks like Little is holding on to a sixth place position as we take a look at the Parts Unlimited leaderboard after 7 laps of racing. Natale, Jones, Gus, Bird, and Pat Brown. And as we said, Keith Little, the number 12, back in a sixth place position. As we look at that Parts Unlimited leaderboard, these riders make their way across the FMF ridgeline here at Redbud Track and Trail. There's Jeremiah Jones, still all over the rear wheels of the number 13 of John Natale. He's going to try to force him into a mistake. He's going to wait for him to tire, and when he does, he's going to try to push him over the edge, and whenever that happens, maybe that might force the defending champion into a mistake, which would open the window of opportunity for Jeremiah Jones to climb right on through and set up house in Moto number 1. Will it happen? Time will tell this story, as it looks like right now Jones is definitely applying the pressure that needs to be applied, but the number 13 of Natale is yet to waver and make any mistakes whatsoever. Gus still third, Bird still fourth, but it looks like he has subsided on his challenges from third place position. You got to wonder, is he thinking reserve a little bit of energy and in the last couple of laps try to mount some sort of a challenge then? And that's a possibility. Joe Bird is a very wise racer whenever it comes to racing. Look how tight this racing action is in and out of the chicane, this switchback section. And this section of the race course, actually a very rough, rugged section of the course, as a big hole developing just before the finish line region, coming up out of that little area of the race course, the Supercross section of the race course. But we didn't get a chance to use a lot of that because of the wet conditions this weekend. Basically all we got to use was that big whoop field, but that was enough to create some great racing over there on that section of the course. Look at this, Jones trying to pull up side by side. Natale using the outside, Jones going to the inside, trying to cut the racetrack short, but it doesn't pay off just yet. But he does get a wheel inside there, and Natale does know he's back there, but Natale is keeping the momentum alive, and that's what's keeping him out front right now. Gus, I think, is pretty much settling in that number 3 spot. He's going to let these guys try to get together, or at least he's thinking these guys may get together, and if they do, he'll be able to blow right on by him. I know that Gus has been in this situation more than once, and he's going to wait till later in the race before he actually starts to mount the challenge that he's going to want to try to take the win whenever the final lap of racing finally comes to pass. We're on lap number 8 right now, and we are closing in on the final of Moto number 1. Natale, Jones, Gus, Bird, and Brown, leaders on our Parts Unlimited leaderboard. Top 5, scratch that. Make it now. Keith Little, the number 12, up to 5th place as he blows by the number 199 of Pat Brown now. Looks like a new life Keith Little, as he is getting an extra surge of energy here late in the moto, and he's going to try to reel in these front 4 riders right now, see whether or not he can become a mix in the contention there. There's Natale, there is Jones. Still wheel-to-wheel action in and out of these turns right there, and you can see how rough that's getting as these riders are lofting up onto that level of the race course out of that lower section here at Redbud, and that hole is getting deeper and deeper and deeper as the race wears on here in Pro Moto number 1. Gus still back in the number 3 spot. The 4th place position is still being held on to by Joe Bird, who rides at number 7. Now, he was the early leader, but he has slowly moved back in the pack to the 4th place position. We've had a 4-way battle for the number 1 spot pretty much since the drop of the gate out there. And right now, John Natale is leading the battle, but Jones is there ready to strike at any given moment, especially if a mistake be made. And here comes Jones now. He's trying to force him into the mistake. Side-by-side action now. Will Jones be able to make the pass? No, he will not, and not at least at this time. But he's going to try to strike back as he goes from one side of this race course to the other, trying to get on the inside of the next turn. It's not going to happen. He gets on the inside, but Natale is already in and out, just barely enough to keep Jones from getting that wheel up and under. Let's see if he's able to get him through this wall region. This wall region, we've seen Jeremiah Jones and both John Natale perform quite well through. Natale choosing Jones choosing a different line than Natale. It looks like Gust almost making the pass on his teammate of Jeremiah Jones as he followed the same line as John Natale. So you got to wonder which is the faster line there. Here we go. Chicane section. That switchback lofting up and over through that rough section of the race course. Jeremiah Jones goes to the outside. Both Gust and Natale stick to the inside of that turn. Gust nearly getting by Jones once more. So Jones, in search of lines, might be opening up the door to be passed here in his first moto of racing. Meanwhile, Joe Bird has just pretty much let these guys go by, and they are walking away with first, second, third right now, though Joe Bird is trying to stay as close as possible as we get closer and closer to the end of this race. I think we can expect to see a little bit of a charge by the number 7. Just hope that it's not too little too late for our championship points leader here in Moto number 1. John Natale, late in the race, still in the number 1 spot. Jeremiah Jones still holding on to his rear wheels, literally basically grabbed onto the bumper of John Natale and has been fighting to try to slingshot around in some way, shape, or form, but just cannot find the fast line around. Again, Gus still in third, Bird back in fourth place. Keith Little has moved up into the number 5 spot aboard the number 12, and he's trying to fend off the 199 of Pat Brown, and Pat Brown is keeping him honest out there for sure here in his first moto of racing. Back behind him now, the 191 of Dustin Wimmer, also working up through the pack on that Honda from Center Valley, Pennsylvania. Your 8th place ride, the 270 of Josh Creamer in 9th spot as we near the conclusion of moto number 1, the number 30 of Travis Spader, and rounding out your top 10 here in this first moto of racing, the number 16 of Jeremy Lawson from Battletown, Kentucky. Looks like a battle for second is starting to heat up even more as John Natale is somewhat comfortable, but look at this. Now Gus has gotten around Jeremiah Jones, and John Natale will try to fight off Digger Doug Gus in these closing laps of racing. Natale has been in command since he's gotten around into the number 1 spot. He has risen to the occasion in these cooler temperatures. As we can see in the opener, our breath, and we're down into the 50s in this early summer months, and that's kind of non-traditional, especially this time of year, no matter where you're at in the U.S., and even in here in Michigan. The temperatures are cooler. John Natale is performing quite strong. We're not seeing him fade like we have seen him fade in the warmer conditions out there, and you know that those are the kind of conditions that take their toll on the defending champ. Right now, he is solid in the number 1 spot, and it looks like Jones is solid back in third as he is not in contention to challenge the 55 of Gus just yet, as Gus now challenging for the number 1 spot on the tally. He's trying the same lines that Jeremiah Jones tried earlier in the race that will actually prove to not be the line choice that you wanted to take out there, because Jones, though it looked like he would pull up side by side of John Natale through that section of the race course, about halfway through would actually begin to slow down, and it became a slower line rather than a quicker line, as it looked like it was in the early part of that whoop field. So the track is changing, and maybe Gus might be able to find a line. Maybe Jeremiah Jones developed a line out there that might be a little faster as the race wears on. So we're just going to have to wait and see if either or any of these riders choose that line, and if they do, whether or not it's going to be a faster line. Lap traffic becoming a factor here late in the race, but you can see they know the leaders are coming through. They pull to the wayside to let these guys go by. Natale beginning to see a little bit of comfort, the most comfort he's seen in the last few laps of racing, and he is on the gas right now. Still Gus back in second and trying to keep it as honest as possible. There is the number 911. That's Steve Runkle. He's having problems out here in moto number 1. He lets the lead riders go by as he goes a lap down here at Redbud late in this moto. John Natale, Digger Doug Gus, Jeremiah Jones, Joe Bird, and back again in that number 5 spot, Keith Little, who's been coming on strong throughout the entire 2006 season. He's had himself some good races, he's had himself some bad races, but I think that once Keith Little starts to put things together, he could be one to watch out for and capable of taking some wins here in the 2006 season. Leaderboard after 13 laps, Natale, Gus, Jones, Bird, and Little. Still no change in our top 5 of the Parts Unlimited leaderboard as these riders make their way around this ATV Sport sweeper turn now and try to, again, reel in the front runners. It's tough to do here in moto number 1 as, again, the conditions are cool. The track is in prime condition, not too muddy, not too dry, and allowing these riders the opportunity to get whatever traction they want and they need out of their ITP tires out here on this race course. It's round number 7 of America's premier ATV motocross racing series, the 2006 ITP Moose Racing ATVA National Motocross Championship, presented to you by Parts Unlimited. Again, special thanks to Suzuki and our friends at ATV Sport Magazine. Don't forget, on race day weekends, you can tune in to atvsport.com, click on the live racing web link, and there you'll be able to listen to racing action from each and every moto of our pro racing in the 2006 ITP Moose Racing season. The battle for the lead continues to heat up. It's not heating up. It just looks like Natali has settled into pace, and he's actually starting to use that outside line, the one that Digger Doug Gus and Jeremiah Jones was trying to utilize to get around. I think that maybe John Natali, as we head into this final lap of racing, may be starting to ride a little bit more in the defensive mode rather than the attack mode. It looks like that Natali has been attacking this track for the entire moto until here late in this first moto of racing. It's now becoming a matter of just trying to be a good defensive rider as much as anything, trying to attack the race course, but I believe it's beginning to wear and tear on him. There's the number 7 of Joe Bird as he takes the white flag, and I know that he is somewhat disgusted with himself after grabbing the hole shot and not being able to hold on to the number 1 position. But we've seen Joe Bird take a 4th place finish in Moto number 1 on more than one occasion in his 2006 season and still be able to come back and take the overall win when the race day was concluded. It all depends on how things break down for these front runners in Moto number 2. If they have any bad luck whatsoever, get off to a bad start like we've seen the number 55 of Doug Gust have happen in the second moto so many times, just wild things happening to him, taking him out of the race, other riders getting caught up with him in the first turn region or whatever the case may be. But Digger Doug Gus has been having to fight back from Moto number 2 a lot lately, as he's not been getting the starts that he's been wanting, kind of like the starts that he gets in Moto number 1. Here we come, a white flag lap heading toward the checker flag, and it looks like John Natali will take a Moto 1 win here at Redbud, back in that second place position, as Doug Gust, the number 55, is going to be able to take that position away. The 3rd place position going to Jeremiah Jones. Joe Bird does hold on the 4th, and Keith Little rounds out your top 5 as we head down to the winner's circle to talk with our Moto 1 champs.
Well, I didn't come out quite as good as I wanted to out of the whole shot. I wanted to come out first, obviously. I think I come out about 4th, somewhere in there. Then I just slowly started picking them off. Jeremiah made a couple mistakes. I got around him, and I just kind of snuck by Bird. I think I passed him on the outside. He was protecting the inside a little too much, and I snuck by him on the outside, and just tried to get out front and run smooth and run a consistent race lap after lap, and it worked out for me. It seemed like they dropped off the pace a little bit more than me, and I've been training a little bit harder for this weekend. I'm not quite 100% yet, but I'm getting there, and I guarantee by the next race I'll be 110%.
Oh, I got a good start finally. My Suzuki LTR 450 Ocean Air is working great. Just hopefully second moto I got a little more in me to pull off a win.